Hello, dear students. A very good morning to all the students out here. Happy Ram Navami as well. The thing is that in the link, the recording was not available to me. So that's why I was forced to close that link for quite a few times. I was stuck in that. Anyway, the recording has been started now, and that's why I have shared a new link with all of you. Again, welcoming all of you in the class of financial management. I hope my voice is perfectly audible to everyone.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Let's move ahead. Sharing my screen with you, and here we are. Okay, so friends, if you can recall it, the last lecture we had started with the ultimate objective of the financial management, and which objective is the most superior among all, right? And we had concluded that wealth maximization is something where companies should be focusing on. That is the ultimate goal of the financial management as far as the long-term perspective is concerned. Now the next question arises that how to maximize the value or the wealth of the shareholders. How to do it? So various experts have given their own theories, have given their own understanding related to maximization of the wealth. But one of the experts who is widely followed among the finance fraternity, who is Alfred Rappaport, who was the professor of economics in the United States of America, he had developed 10 commandments, 10 ways where the company should focus the most to create the shareholder value. Now, any Chandulal, any Tom, Dick, and Harry will come and say that this should be done to increase the shareholder value. This should be done to increase the shareholder value. But the problem with each and every suggestion we get from everyone is that they are extremely subjective in nature. They are extremely situational in nature. Some of the things might be applicable to some companies, some of the things might not be applicable to some companies because everyone's structure is different, everyone's pros and cons are different, everyone's problems are different. That's why he has built a very comprehensive model which can be applied to almost every company. He has just given the 10 simple guidelines to be taken care of. He has also come to know that where the CEOs and the people of the companies are getting stuck, where they should not concentrate much, where they should concentrate to maximize the shareholders' value. So after looking into every problems, after going through the tremendous amount of research, after studying the thousands of companies in the United States of America, he has come to a conclusion, which is also said by the 10 ways to create the value by Mr. Alfred Rappaport. Let's look at the first one. It sounds very simple. This document will be circulated with you. The first one is do not manage earnings or provide earnings guidance. Now, some people would be like, sir, maximizing the earnings is something where the people should be focusing. Why you are saying that we should not be managing the earnings? What happens, my dear friends, with the earnings is that earning is specifically applicable to one accounting period. Now, to increase the earning of one accounting period, you might be forced to take the temporary decisions. You might be inclined towards taking the decisions which will be increasing the shareholders value, which will be increasing your earnings only for a temporary basis. You take anything in the nature, anything and everything which is good, no, is initially bad. Every kind of aushadhis, every kind of dawas, every sort of a pain you take, every kind of efforts you are putting, initially you feel bad about it. If you think temporarily, then you will never be able to come out of your comfort zone. You will never be able to take the decisions which will be better in the long term. All the decisions generally, my dear friends, which are good in the long term are not so good in the short term. For the short term, you feel like, oh my God, where I am stuck. I am compromising my comfort zone. I am compromising so many things of mine. જ્યારે આપણે દવા લઈએ ત્યારે દવા પહેલા કડવી લાગે, પણ જો આપણે શોર્ટ ટર્મ વિચારીએ તો આપણે કહો માય ગોડ, I do not want to take the કડવી દવા. Then what will happen in the long term? Your immunity will not remain strong. Every sort of a thing which is good for the long term in nature, you will have to go into the uncomfortable zone for it. And that is what applicable to every company. If you are driven by the short term goals, the instant gratification that I am doing something and I should get right now, then my dear friends, you will never be able to develop the long term wealth. Now all the decisions which companies are taking, some of the decisions might not give you the instant results. Like if you are investing in the research and development, research and development is an activity which will take number of years, but you can see the fruits of research and development the companies are getting, like Apple, Amazon, Google. Apple is spending a lot of money in the research. Billions and billions are spent just in a research. That's why they are able to maintain the outstanding position in the market on a continuous basis. Now, how can you get the instant gratification, instant benefit of any research activity? You cannot get. You train your employees. The training which you are providing to your employees for the betterment of their capabilities, to enhance their capabilities, is not something which will give you the fruit in a very short term. No, it will take some time. Today you are providing the training. After 2 years, 3 years, they will develop some capabilities, and after that you will start getting the benefits of their capabilities. So that's why Mr. Alfred Rappaport has said that do not focus much on the earnings which are short term in nature. Earnings is something which is applicable to one accounting period. Now, if your earnings are not good and if you are pressurized to maintain the earning, then what you will do, you will take some temporary decisions, and those temporary decisions might not be very good for the long term. Temporary decisions for the temporary benefit will never be good for the long term. At the initial phase, every one of us is bound to take the pain. More the sufferings, more the efforts we put in the initial phase, higher will be the benefits in the future. So that's why he is focusing, he is telling that we should not, the CEO should not focus much on the earnings, because then you will be driven by the earnings only. And to increase the earning, you will take the decisions which might not be very much good in the long term. You have started selling some product. Right now you are able to see that you are getting the profits. But after 2 to 3 years, there is no demand of that product in the market. What will happen? That product is something which is carrying the demand right now among the people, but after 2-3 years, the technological advancement will take place, and that product will not remain appropriate. Then what will happen? You should not be forced to take the temporary decisions. That's why your focus shall not be much on the earnings. Number 2, Make the strategic decisions that maximize expected value even at the expense of lowering near-term earnings. Try to read it very carefully. Make strategic decisions that maximize expected value. When I am using the word expected value, that means the expected value is of the future at the expense of lowering near-term earnings. Even if you will have to forego some near-term earnings, the classic example of such kind of an expense is the employee benefits expense, employee training and placement expense. If you are training your employees for the betterment of your company in the future to enhance their capabilities, my dear friends, we do not get the results immediately. There will be effect on the near-term earnings. After some of the months, you will be like, oh my God, we are just spending. These people are not learning only. But it will take some time. Slowly and steadily, you will start receiving the benefits of it. There are n number of such expenses which increases the value in the long term, but for a short period of time, you feel like we haven't received the good benefits of it. But still, you should try to remain stuck with those decisions. So here we are talking about the strategic decisions. All the decisions which might be related to the long-term strategy of the company. Take those decisions if they are good for the long term. Do not focus much on the earnings. Even if you will have to lower down your earnings for some period of time, do that as well. That's the principle number 2. Let's move ahead. Make acquisitions that maximize the expected value even at the expense of lowering near-term earnings. Now, what happens, my dear friends? Here we are using the word acquisition. That means you may enter into a merger and amalgamation transactions. You are buying the stake of one company. You are buying altogether a different company. You are buying a new business. Now, what happens when you buy the new business? No. At that time, the EPS gets diluted. And that is going to happen because the new company might not be having the good EPS. Say your EPS was 15 rupees per share. I'm using the word EPS, that means earning per share, which is nothing but the profit after taxes divided by the number of shares you have. And another company which you have bought is having 5 rupees per share. Now the EPS of another company is just a 5 rupees per share. Now what will happen if you merge with that company? Then your earning per share, the new earning per share will get diluted. Will get somewhere around 9, 10, 11 based on whatever the number of shares you have in both the companies. Say your new EPS reaches out to what? 11. Now what will happen? Suddenly the shareholders will feel that your stock is overvalued. Let me just give you the example. Say your stock is having the PE multiple of 15. Try to understand. Now, sorry, EPS of 15. Now there is something called price to earning ratio, which has been considered to measure whether the stocks are overvalued or undervalued. Now the formula of the price to earning ratio is market price divided by EPS. Try to understand. Say the market price of your company was 300 and your EPS, the earlier EPS was 15. So what was your PE multiple? Your PE multiplier was 20. So I can say that market price was 20 times of your earning per share. Now what will happen? Now your new EPS is at 15 or say is at 11 or 10. Now let's take that example. Say your market price remains same 300 and the new EPS reaches to 10. That means the new PE multiple will be 30. Suddenly the PE multiple increases. That is the sign of overvaluation. immediately people will start thinking that this stock is overvalued. And what will happen? They will start selling of the shares in the market. The market price of the share may get crashed, and again the PE ratio will reach somewhere near to 20. If the market price gets crashed and reaches to 200, then again at the bottom you have 10 as the new EPS. Your PE multiple reaches to 20. Now market price is getting crashed for a very short frame of time. Now this has been again stated by Mr. Alfred Rappaport that do not focus much on the temporary ups and downs. If you feel that by entering into this acquisition, by buying or selling that company, the long-term value of the company will be increased, will be boosted, then even though you will have to sacrifice your earnings a bit, enter into that transaction. There will be some immediate effects, yes. The instant reaction of anything which is not a pleasurable thing for us will always be negative. દવા પીએ ત્યારે ઉપકા આવવાનું મન થાય. That's the temporary reaction. કોઈક નવું કામ આવે ત્યારે ટાળવાનું મન થાય. That's the temporary reaction. Efforts વધારે કરવાના આવે, શરૂઆતમાં પ્રોબ્લેમ થાય. That's the temporary reaction. And temporary reactions are never good for the long-term survival, for the long-term thriving of the companies. Even though your market price is getting crashed from 300, it is reaching to 200, fine, it's okay. Let investors feel that you are overvalued for the short frame of time. Fine, it's okay. But still they take that decision because you feel that there would be a synergy created by entering into that transaction. Sometimes what happens, the synergies are created, you know. In finance, it's not always about 1 plus 1 equal to 2. Sometimes the 1 plus 1 may equal to 3. Few people would be like, sir, how the 1 plus 1 would be equal to 3? See, there would be some weaknesses of 1. There would be another weaknesses of the 2. The weaknesses of the first will be covered up by the strengths of the second one. And the weaknesses of the second one would be covered up by the strengths of the first one. So that's why the collective benefit from both of this might be 3. And the additional benefit you are getting just because you have merged up is 1, that is called as the synergy benefit. This is the synergy benefit, my dear friends. This benefit you get because you have merged. All the problems, all the bottlenecks faced by one company might be the strength of another company. So that is removed now. All the weaknesses of B company might be the strength of A company. So B's weaknesses are also removed now. And that is what happens in the marriages as well. Marriages are done specifically with the objective that there would be some synergy benefits created. And I have a great faith on this marriage system. Nowadays, there is a air going on that among specifically the young professionals are avoiding that. But this world is never about the absolute independence. Nothing in the world can survive with the absolute independence. It's all about the interdependence. I'm not saying that you should be entirely dependent on something or someone. No. It's about the interdependence concept. The entire cycle of the nature works on the interdependence concept. Some of the things you might be dependent on another person will be dependent on you for some of the things. You can never have the absolute independence. We are not habituated to be absolutely independent. We are the social animal. There can be synergy benefits if we merge together. That is what the benefit of the teams are. So that's why, my dear friends, sometimes temporarily you may feel that, oh my God, I have taken the wrong decision, because you are now out of your comfort zone. Temporarily, you will have to put much of efforts, but once you will be habituated with this many efforts, long-term benefits you may get for the survival and for thriving the company. So that's why he is telling you, Mr. Rappaport, he is just, trying to draw the analogy from from the law of the nature to one of the principles of the finance. It is applicable to everyone. Sometimes the synergies are created, even though your earnings are getting little bit less because the earnings of the new company might be lesser than you. Still enter into a transaction if you feel that the long-term value will be created. If you have the strong research that there would be a long-term synergy benefits because of this amalgamations, merger and acquisitions. Okay, so that's the point number 4. May I have the confirmation from the students, please, that we have got everything till now? All of you?
Yes, sir.
Good. Okay. Carry only the assets which maximizes the value. Now what happens is that once you have got the funds, no, you need to be extra careful about how you are spending that money. Some of the assets might not be giving too much of value in the long term. If you keep your money stuck in some of the things like furniture, some of the things like exotic, interiors and all such sort of things, then try to estimate that what will be the long-term value of it. Try to keep only those assets where there would be some earning power. Now, accounting tells you that whatever the property you own, no, that is an asset for you. But the definition of the asset from the finance perspective is slightly different. Not all the properties can be the asset for you. Let me just give you a very simple example. Say you are buying a car, but you are buying a car on a loan. You have taken the loan and the EMI would be paid on a monthly basis, say 20,000 rupees, and your income is 50,000 rupees. Now, accounting tells you that the car is something which is owned by you. You should be recording it as an asset, even though you have taken the loan on it. Loan may be recorded at the liability side. But the problem is that as far as the finance is concerned, no, try to see the economic utility of it. What you are earning from that car? No, nothing. How much value addition you are making because of that car? Difficult to be calculated. Have you sought any new contracts, new deals, new works just because you had a car? If you are receiving some benefits in terms of cash just because you own a car, then you can say that yes, I am earning something from the car. But the same car, if it is given on rent and you are earning 15,000 rupees per month on a rent on that car, then it becomes an asset from the finance perspective, because now that asset has started earning something. Now this earning can be the present earning, it can be the future earning too. Then also it's fine. Sometimes the earnings might not be in the present, but in future you would get some earnings. So what Mr. Alfred Rappaport is trying to say, that carry only those assets which creates the value, where some economic benefits are there in a long period of time. If you will be stucking your too much of money into the assets, into those kind of fixed assets and expenses, which are just looking good for a temporary period, but in a long term they do not produce too much of value to the company. Do not invest much in that. Pretty much simple to understand.
Sir, I have a question. May I?
Please, yes, please, why not?
Sir, you just gave an example of a car we bought from by taking a loan, right, sir?
Hmm.
So we are paying a premium of 20,000 rupees per month, and we are
Hmm.
running from rent about 15,000. So finally, we are making a loss. So wouldn't it be a liability considered as?
I These are two mutually exclusive example. One, you are taking it on a loan. Now you see, loan amount might differ, no, based on the period of loan you have taken. If you have just taken the period of loan as 2 years, then the loan installment amount would be quite high. If you are saying that, sir, the period of repayment of loan would be 5 years, then the loan installment amount would be quite less. So profit and loss cannot be calculated from the the EMI amount, because EMI amount, this installment amount would differ based on, the period of loan. If the period of loan would be too less, obviously the EMIs are going to be too high. What I'm trying to say is that the car is something which is a depreciable asset. After 5 years, the car would be obsolete. You're not going to get any benefits out of that car after 5 years. If you feel that the car will be adding some value to you, now the value addition can be in terms of, say, earlier you were working, you are not able to meet many number of people. Now because of the car, you are able to meet many number of people. That's why you are able to generate more amount of sales. That's the value addition done by the car. So what I'm trying to say is that whenever we enter into any transaction, whenever we are buying something, we should see that what is the long-term value created by that asset. Whether additional benefits we are getting in terms of money because we are, investing in it. There is nothing wrong if you are buying 80,000 rupees smartphone. But let's see that what you were able to do in that 80,000 rupees Apple smartphone, which you are not able to do in 20,000 rupees Vivo or Oppo smartphone. If all the utilities are same, no new benefits you are getting, and just for the brand value, if you are paying something, then it is not creating the value for you in the long term. What additional benefits you are getting because you are entering into any transaction? That is how our mind should be habituated to think about. I'm not saying that you should buy 20,000 phone or 80,000 phone. No. If it creates the value for you for the long time, then take that 80,000 phone as well. That's perfectly fine. But incremental benefits and incremental expenses, this is how the decisions are to be taken. Enter
Okay,
into,
sir. Understood.
right. If that asset is earning something in the long term, no, then you can say that, that asset is good for you. Otherwise, these assets are depreciable in nature. You invest in some of the intellectual property rights. They are not depreciable in nature, because intellectual property rights are owned by you. You do some research, you develop some patents, you develop some trademarks. Now that can be sold to other as well, and you can get the money. Yes, we need to see that, what's the utility of the trademark or intellectual right. So that is something which creates the value. Some of the expenses might not be increasing your sales. But if you feel that, sir, if I put a good furniture, no, then there would be some impact on the sales. All the customers who are visiting at my place, if they would be feeling, if they would have some relaxation, and if they would have, like, companies too big and companies providing such kind of, amenity, and because of that, if you are able to generate a good amount of sales, then it's fine, and now that asset is creating a value. But everything needs to be established in terms of numbers. What I'm trying to say is that the basic philosophy behind taking the decision, it should be like you should get the benefits, otherwise not. You should create some value in the long term, otherwise you should not enter into that transaction. Return cash to shareholders when there are no credible value creating opportunities to invest in the business. Now, sometimes what happens that, see, you have the two options. One is to pay the dividend to the shareholders as a finance manager. Another one is not to pay the dividend to the shareholders. The next question to be asked is that if you decide that you should pay the dividend, then how much of dividend per share needs to be paid? Say 5 rupees, 10 rupees, 15 rupees. And third question, that what will be the impact on market price of the equity shares if you pay the dividend or if you do not pay the dividend. For that, there are certain mathematical models. We'll look into those mathematical models in the fourth module, but I am just introducing you with a very simple concept of called dividend, whether to pay or not to pay. Now, Mr. Alfred Rappaport is saying you a very simple criteria that whether you should pay the dividend or not. Try to understand the expectations of the equity shareholder. Say 10% is the expectation of equity shareholder. Now, some people will be like, sir, how can we evaluate that this is 10% and not 12? There are certain models. We'll look into those models. And if you will be investing that money, the amount of money which you are distributing as a dividend, if you will be keeping that money with you rather than distributing it to the shareholders, and then you will be investing that money somewhere into your business, somewhere into your, other operating activities. So try to check the return. Say the return that you are getting from the business is 15%. Then what is the meaning of it? The expectations of the shareholders are just 10%. You are able to generate 15% of the return in your own firm. Then you should try to keep as much of money with you. Now, initially, when the companies are growing, at that point of time, my dear friends, it is always better to keep as much money required with the company. Because when the companies are growing, when they are there in the expansion stage, they require some amount of money for, doing some expansion, for framing some marketing strategy, for doing some expense in the advertisement. At that time, one should not expect much in terms of dividend. So compare the return the company is getting with the expectations of the shareholders. Now, expectations of the shareholders are say 10% again, but you are able to earn only 7% return in your business. If you employ these funds in your business, your rate of return expectation is just 7% on it. In those situations, give the money of dividend to the shareholders. Otherwise, what will happen if the expectations of the shareholders will not be satisfied? Then they will be dissatisfied, and then they will be starting to sell off the shares of the company, and there would be some effect on the market price. You should be keeping the money of dividend with you only if you feel that you will be able to earn more than something expected by the shareholders. Now, if you feel that, sir, in a long period of time, we do not have any such opportunity where we will be creating the value for the long time. And even if we have such opportunity, the return expectations of the shareholders are not getting satisfied, then pay the dividend to the shareholders in such situations. That is the best policy. Principle number 5. Now, 5 ways we have done, 5 more are to be done. We'll see 5 more ways in the upcoming session. It's already 9:43. I guess you might have the break now. or you might have the lecture at 9:50 now, so giving you 5 minutes for the relaxation. Is there any question or queries till now? May I have the confirmation from the students, please, that you have got everything? All the 5 ways. Let's have the rapid fire revision of all the 5 ways in just a minute. Way number one was, do not manage the earnings or provide the earnings guidance. Do not focus too much on the earnings because earnings is something which is short term in nature. Even though you might not have the good earnings right now, you should take the decisions which are creating the value in the long term. That is the principle number one. Principle number two, make the strategic decisions that maximize the expected value even at the expense of lowering the near term earnings. Even if you will have to lower down your near term earnings, you will have to do some expenses which will directly result into reduction in your earnings. If you feel that that will be creating the long term value, take those decisions. Do not think too much temporarily about the markets. Principle number three, make the acquisitions. Enter into a transactions of merger and amalgamation. Acquire the new companies if you feel that there will be long-term synergy created because of this. When you acquire some of the companies, there is a quite possibility that the PE ratio might get overvalued. If the earning per ratio of the new company would be lower, then you know, your combined earning per ratio will also be affected. PE ratio might look very overvalued. Companies may start selling off your shares. Even though the investors may start selling off your shares, sorry. Even though the investors are selling those shares, your market price is going down, still enter into a transaction because there would be long-term benefits from this. So do not think much about the short-term movements of the market. Try to understand the long-term wealth. Carry only the assets which maximizes the value. The assets which are in which your money is stuck do not create much value. There is no earning potential in those assets. Do not keep your too much of money stuck into those kind of an assets. That is applicable to the personal finance management as well. And the fifth one we have seen is that return cash to shareholders when there are no credible value creating opportunities. If you feel that right now we do not have good opportunities which will be satisfying the expectations of the shareholders, return cash to them in terms of dividend. Pay them the cash. That is the best policy you can adopt in that situation. Now we'll see other principles later on. Now please put your enrollment number as a mark of your attendance. That's it from my side. Bye bye. Take care. Sayonara. Enjoy the rest of the day. See you all in the next session.
Thank you, sir.